Hey all, Mark Vega here. If this is the first time you're seeing us, boy, am I glad you found us. If it's not, well, you know how this goes. Every episode of the Run Long After 60 podcast starts with me moving, not in a studio, not behind a desk, but out on a run. When Lori Baloo was 40 years old, she stood on top of a mountain in Yellowstone, and she looked down at a 500-foot descent. And she stopped and she turned around because she knew at 225 pounds with asthma, if she went down, she would not be able to get back up. 20 years later, that same trail, boom, 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 no problem. No problem at all. But my guest today is not an ultra runner. She's a hiker and she's a half marathoner. She's 63 years old and she's a functional health practitioner. Okay, so why is Lori on a show about people over 60 running super long distances? Well, she lost 100 pounds in her 50s. And on her 60th birthday, she ran the rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. It's her happy place. It's her meditative place. And now, professionally, she really helps people try to figure out what we're all trying to figure out. What does it take? What does our body need when we're in our 60s? What is the fueling? What's the strategy? What's the mindset? And that's her purpose. And mine too, in a way. First step is to just get people moving. Get them moving. Okay, that's easy enough to say that we want to get people moving. But when that happens, or rather when it doesn't happen, Lori has all of the right tests to recommend to really help a person dial in what's holding them back. Is it food? Is it the way we think about food? Is it metabolism? Is it something else in their life that maybe has them stuck in some way? She is hyper-focused on that. And because she's hyper-focused on it, she helps her clients get in the right mindset to really unlock some potential they thought they had, but they couldn't tap into it. If you like what you see and hear here, you know, the look, tone, touch, and feel of it all, I'm really glad you found us. And the best way to support the program is to subscribe on YouTube or go to wherever you find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all of them, and subscribe. Like the content, share it with someone, and drop us a comment. We respond to everyone, and we're really grateful. We're glad that you're here. Okay, I think that's it. I'm ready. You ready? Mm-hmm. Think so, because it's time. It's time for Lori Baloo. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Welcome to another episode of the Run Long After 60 podcast. This is Mark Vega, and today's guest, how about this, as we introduce Lori Balue. Lori, how about this way to start? Take me to the start line at Glacier. It's 3:30 in the morning. You're 62 years old, and you got 5 miles of uphill ahead of you. We'll start there. What goes on in your head then?
Well, I'm actually kind of excited. I love the energy of people who are runners and being at a half marathon. Everybody is there basically on vacation, but having exercise at the same time. And it's just a wonderful energy. You're out at the national parks, you're in fresh air, and it's just invigorating. And so I wake up early and I get to the start line. And what I'm doing is I'm actually fueling. I'm making sure I have electrolytes. I've had my mineral water already. I'm making sure that I got the right amount of sodium. And I started fueling with keto bricks. And so I made sure I proportioned all of that out so I get 100-calorie little fuel bites along my way. So I start off with that. And then, you know, I have that strategically throughout the race. But basically, I'm just super excited because I love half marathons.
Okay.
And I was not somebody, I've never been an athlete. I was picked last for PE back in school. I was 225 pounds overweight. I was not an athlete. It was
You
just
didn't, yeah,
something.
you didn't start as a runner either. So where
No,
were you at 40? Physically, where were you at 40 years old?
asthmatic, 225 pounds, miserable, depressed, pre-diabetic, PCOS. And I'm struggling. I just didn't even have a good quality of life. I didn't like who I was. I didn't feel comfortable in my body. And
How
that
many
was,
years how many years was how long did it take you? That was at 40.
mhm.
How long did it take to really come to that understanding that you weren't
it
satisfied?
when you're depressed and you're just living in the moment, you might be repressed. I'm also a introvert, and so I have been struggling my whole life with weight problems, with depression, being alone, and struggling with what I understood now is food sensitivities that kept me kind of sick and overweight and depressed. And so I was told by my ex-husband at the time, he was my husband, but I had come in from an outing with my 8-year-old son at the time, and my husband didn't even look at me. He's sitting on the sofa, and he asked me, "When am I gonna lose the weight?" So this was my mid-30s and 225 pounds, and I spent the next 20 years learning about functional health and nutrition and just living all the diets, trying to figure out what I could do to feel better in my body, to lose the weight. I mean, we all think, okay, if I just lost the weight, I'm going to feel better. And so I would lose the weight, gain it back, lose the weight, gain it back. I could not keep it off. I did
Okay.
not understand what was going on in my body until I researched it with functional health and nutrition.
So before we get to those acronyms and the language, which is brand new to me. So once I found you, I was happy to discover you and kind of went down a rabbit hole trying to figure out, okay, what is she actually talking about? How does it work? So let me back up a second. Thank you for letting me just jump it in the water. That was a lot of fun. But first, pronunciation of your name, how does that go? And then walk me through your credentials before we go any further. Walk me through the credentials.
Sure.
So I've been saying Baloo. Is that correct?
It's Baloo, like the
Baloo.
Baloo bear.
Baloo.
So
Okay,
it's
Baloo.
French German, Baloo. And the acronyms, the first acronym is when I actually started a ketogenic diet, I got my brain back. I got excited. I started studying. I had been reading all the books, studying paleo nutrition. Paleo nutrition is a grain free, sugar free, for the most part. They do allow some honey. Um, Paleo nutrition is basically grain free. You eat more protein, you eat more good fats, you keep a lot of fruits and vegetables in the diet. It's a whole foods diet. It's what we were developed, what we kind of as our species developed on, a whole foods diet. And it wasn't enough for me to lose the weight. It was still too much sugar. And so when I took the sugar out of my diet, my brain turned back on and I was able to focus and think more clearly. And I got excited about life again. That's when I actually started the Adapt Functional Health Coaching Program, which is what the ACFHC stands for, Adapt Certified Functional Health Coach.
Okay.
And with Chris Kresser, I had been studying paleo nutrition with Chris Kresser and all the other nutritional docs back in those days that were focused on paleo nutrition. Rob Wolf, there were many, many others. And I started trying to understand why we get fat. And I read the book Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes, which everybody references, and it talks about insulin resistance, where we can't actually use insulin and glucose in our body, and we end up becoming more tired, more depressed, more dysfunctional. And so that can lead to prediabetes, which is where I was. But once I
How
started
old were
keto,
you when you got
when I was,
credentialed? How old were you?
I was, it was 2018, so 53, 54, 55, about 55,
Okay,
55 or
so
56.
from 40 to 55, that's 15 years of learning and training and
Mhm.
testing and
Mhm.
learning, right? So
Yeah,
that's
and it
what
took
those
me it
years
took
were.
me another, 10 years to finalize how it works
Okay.
as I was implementing my diet. And so once I finished the year-long course of the Adapt Functional Health Coaching Program, I decided or I discovered functional diagnostic nutrition, which you run labs, personal labs to help people find their hidden healing opportunities, and I like to say weight loss blocks. So I can run like a hormone test. I could run a gut test, so a stool test. I could run a food sensitivity test. And those are the tests that I ran on myself and that I run on clients. And then we can actually see what's going on inside the body, like open up a window to see what's going on inside the body. So, functional diagnostic nutrition allowed me to go deeper and to understand how the metabolism is functioning and to see what are the blocks to keeping people dysfunctional so that we could correct the metabolism more quickly. So that's why I also call myself a metabolic restoration practitioner, or that is my niche because not only needed to reduce the weight, but to reduce the weight and keep it off, I needed to fix my metabolism. And
Okay.
when you fix your metabolism, you have to fix your blood sugar dysregulation. So I hope those were simple enough terms to describe kind of what I am focused on and what my credentials mean.
Yes, I think you did a great job with that. Thank you for that. We'll still have
You're
to
welcome.
repeat them. We'll have to repeat them over the course of this. But, and I've heard those on a podcast before. I've heard this, you say these things. And sometimes that's really another reason why I'm like, oh, I want to get her on because in my, and maybe we're all different, but in my experience, history says a lot. So if you started early on being over 200 pounds, let's say, and then I think if I read some of this, could have been from your website, lauriebaloo.com. It's a great resource. I'll make sure I link it in the show notes because then you really can reread what it is. Like, okay, now I kind of start to understand this precisely. And I think that our family histories tell a lot. And I think I wrote down obesity and diabetes played a big role in your own family. Your father and your sister succumbed to that. Cancer took another sister. How do those facts play into your life? And it's almost like how can we outrun a family history? How did the family evolution of reality impact what you learned about yourself to try to understand? It's not paleo, it's something else. That's a
Well, it
big
was
wide net of a question, but
yeah.
there it is, Lori.
Let me see if I can get my thoughts around that.
Okay.
So I was 200 pounds when I was probably 12. And back then, I believe I had food sensitivities that created more gut dysfunction. I was the only one in 7 children that actually became obese, but it came with depression. And back in that day, what happened that supported me was my mom was a big reader of Adele Davis. So she was trying to work on figuring out why my brothers were hyperactive, and she put them on vitamins. But what she did with me was put me on the Atkins diet at the time because she took me to the doctor and the doctor couldn't do anything for my depression. And so she figured, well, let's just see if we can get her to lose the weight and put her on Atkins. And well and behold, my depression went away. No doctor was necessary even. And I lost 50 pounds and reset my metabolism. So that was how I started.
Okay.
And that was what kind of fueled me on. But then I had to live all the diets because I didn't understand at that age what was going on in my body,
Of
but
course.
it did help me keep the weight off until I got older. And then I started dieting, struggling, and gaining weight. But what was going on was insulin resistance. I was PCOS, and PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it is part of a pre-diabetic state that a lot of women will become, and most women have that issue. A lot of young women will have that issue, especially if you're more overweight. So I had to struggle with that, and being insulin resistant is a term where you can't really use your insulin well and your body kind of puts a block on it. So you lose energy. You're not able to actually burn glucose. So you just feel tired all the time and you might feel depressed. And so a lot of people end up like that and don't realize why they're tired. And with the diabetes, my dad had metabolic syndrome his pretty much his whole life. He had high blood pressure always. He was diabetic He ended up losing his legs to kidney dysfunction and
Hmm.
ultimately lost his life to kidney failure and chose not to have any more kidney support. So he ended up with, he died with no legs. He had cut them, they were both been cut off because of the dysfunction. And I didn't
Hmm.
know back then what was going on. I still had to live the diets. I still had to study and read all the books. And I've read all the paleo nutrition books of the time. And it is when you have wheat on your brain, and what I meant by wheat on the brain, when you feel when you can't focus because of your diet and food sensitivities, people aren't even aware of it, that the brain is not even working as well as it could. But it was really hard to understand. People think, what am I going to eat if I don't eat the wheat? Well, there's lots of food to eat. We just are actually eating the wrong food for our bodies, but they can cause food sensitivities and they can lead to the pre-diabetes and the diabetes. But what I've noticed and what I have understood is when you practice something called epigenetics, it might sound like a big word, but basically, when you focus on what epigenetics is you can turn on and off your DNA, your genes, by your environment, by what you eat and how you nourish your body. Even the activities that you do can actually change the DNA to a healthier DNA. So you don't have to express disease. So I stopped expressing the disease in my body and I reversed the disease in my body. No more prediabetes. I lived with asthma for 20 years, the sinusitis, bronchitis, coughing up phlegm, constantly sick with that, unable to exercise because I couldn't breathe well. I'd be on a breathing machine and I'd have an inhaler. And I went to the doctor every March for my allergies. And I asked him, I said, will I always be on an inhaler? And he said, yes, because that's his understanding. But I do not use an inhaler. I no longer have asthma. I have stopped the expression of my DNA. I do not have the inflammation that leads to the diseases of our population. About
Okay.
9 out of 10, I've heard said, of the diseases of aging and lifestyle are diet related and specifically have to do with your environment. Are you pulling that trigger on your DNA with the environment by the food you're eating, the toxins you're getting exposed to, and the lack of activity? If you're not getting activity, will lead to that as well. So all of that can turn on or off your disease. And I turned off my diseases by epigenetic processes. So I actually had an episode of melanoma a year after I started keto. It came out on my neck. I had to have it surgically removed. There was nothing underneath it, never came back. My understanding, or what I believe from everything I've studied, is that was my bullet. That was an insulin related disease, which is
Hmm.
what it is. And my body kicked it out. I detoxed it out of my system. But if I had not changed my diet, my lifestyle, that could have been a disease I would have been stuck with. That
That
could have
makes
killed
sense.
me in my 60s, whereas now I don't have a disease that I have to worry about. I'm not on any medications because I have practiced a holistic low carb diet and turned off the disease causing process of diabetes, cancer, and depression.
I think when we hear stories like this, that's very clear that in an N of one universe where I am the subject and I am the experiment and I'm going to get this fixed, those stories are very, very powerful. And let me take a couple of steps back to going to the root of things, which is a phrase that I hear a lot, but I think there's it's too big of a definition perhaps, so there's maybe not a lot of agreement on what it exactly is, but it's general enough too that everybody can relate to it. And that's food sensitivities. And I think I got a sense that there's a whole bunch of different types of practitioners. Let's say you're a category of practitioner who, in an N of one universe, I'm heavy. I'm tired of this. My family has histories. I need to understand what's going on with me. I try paleo. I try low fat, low cal, vegetarian, HGZ, paleo, all of the diets, all the things, trying to figure out for me. This is Lori Baloo, trying to figure out what is going to work for me. And as you start the foundational elements of this recitation to me, this articulation to me just now of how it hits you and why you're urging people to do this way and what your philosophy has evolved into, Uh, I love the initial thoughts of how we experience food sensitivities. So, specifically, when you hear someone talking about a food that somehow they consume a lot, but they think they have inflammation or something, um, how do we invite people to take a step back from their own food sensitivities? In other words, that sensitivity to eating broccoli, it's probably not that broccoli's good or bad. It's the broccoli is giving you data.
Yes.
And if we immediately say, oh, broccoli's bad, no more broccoli, we are completely ignoring the underlying thing, whatever it is, right? So talk to me. I'll stop talking now. Talk to me about food sensitivities, just really in general, as you first start to talk to people before you drive down a road of, well, we're going to do this and I do this and let's do this. How do they even start to understand their own use of that phrase, food sensitivity, and what's really happening when they perceive a connection? There, it might be correlation. They might jump to causation. So talk about food sensitivities.
Yeah, I really like that you brought that up because most people think that it isn't necessary or that it doesn't really make a difference. And it was huge for my healing opportunities and for me to lose the weight, ditch the diabetes, and keep the weight off because I believe when I gained that 200 pounds back as an adolescent, I I have heard my mom say I had German measles. I believe that I ended up with leaky gut earlier in life than the other siblings. And so I'm the one that got obese and had food sensitivity issues and ended up with the depression. And for me, I believe I was sensitive all along to dairy because I always had phlegm. I always was coughing. And as I got older, I ended up with the bronchitis and sinusitis and asthma. So I had a lifelong sensitivity to dairy from leaky gut. And leaky gut is basically a term where your intestinal tract, the junctions, tight junctions in your intestinal tract, so they're supposed to be tight. And what they do is open. So there's a zonulin enzyme and they open and close to let things into the body. It's supposed to be, um, they're supposed to be, sorry, a bracelet just broke. They're supposed to be tight, you know?
Okay.
But the thing with wheat, as a wheat sensitivity, it has gluten, gliadin causes those zonulin to open. And so a lot of people end up with leaky gut. And over time, this can lead to autoimmune dysfunction, depression, because gluten is getting into the body. You're getting more of dysbiotic bacteria happening from foods that are not being digested, that are being absorbed into the body. So there is a lot of things that when you have a food sensitivity, it can cause um, long-term damage in the intestinal tract that can cause those leaky gut intestinal, you know, open. So it opens and causes more problems that get into your blood and it causes inflammation. Inflammation is part of what everybody has. If you have any pain in your body, you have inflammation. And it may be very subtle. And that's why it's hard to determine if food sensitivities are even your concern. Like, I like to run a food sensitivity test to discover this, but what they are doing is causing that inflammation, leading to your body to have kind of like a backup of digestive issues, more dysbiotic bacteria, more leaky gut, continuing to get worse over time. And then you may end up with depression, anxiety, asthma, any conditions within of aging that are causing our bodies to have pain. So so food sensitivities for me was the wheat and the dairy. That caused me to have depression. That caused me to have a gut that wasn't functioning well. And I wasn't able to actually feel good in my body to focus on diet and lifestyle changes or even to have movement because I didn't feel good. And when I ran a food sensitivity test on myself, one of the things I noticed is I had a red. So there's green, yellow, and red on how much you're reacting to a specific food. So I was red sensitive with wheat as well as dairy and corn. And the thing that's interesting about wheat, dairy, and corn is their proteins are very similar. Your body can't always tell the difference. It can't tell the difference between those. So if you're sensitive to one, you could be sensitive to all three. And so there's a lot of people who are eating wheat and dairy, getting that inflammation, not understanding that that's creating inflammation in the body. And it can also cause the body to feel inflamed, create more disease in the body. And when you stop that, when you stop taking the foods in, you actually reduce the inflammation. You're able to think more clearly. You can start to feel what it feels like to feel good in your body. And so I was sensitive to blueberries, so I don't eat a lot of blueberries. I was sensitive to the foods that I was eating. And when you have leaky gut, one of the things that happens is you can become sensitive to the foods you're eating. But what we need to do to stop the food sensitivities is heal and seal the gut, close the gut junctions. Those tight junctions need to be closed. And then when you do that, then you start to actually reduce the food sensitivities, reduce the inflammation, stop more of that disease process by correcting the gut. It corrects how you feel, and you start to feel better in your body.
Mm.
When that happens, it's easier to actually focus on diet changes and focus on, oh, wow, that really feels good. Now I can do this. And there's stages to it. So that's why I couldn't do it initially, was because I kept wheat in the diet. I kept dairy in the diet. I didn't feel good. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think clearly until I took those out. And I often tell people, I said, you could just try a paleo low carb diet for 30 days and see how you feel. Because once you take the wheat out of your diet and you start correcting those tight junctions and start reducing them and start reducing the inflammatory responses in the body, you feel better. And you're able to then wow, this works. Let me try the next thing. Let me see. And then the thing that's really interesting that I like to state is once you take something out for 30 days or 60 days, I like to have people take it out for 3 months if it's a yellow sensitivity, 6 months for red sensitivity. When you bring it back, your body will tell you if you need that, if it wants that in your body. It'll set off an alarm response. It'll set off an inflammatory response, and you will feel the pain and you will notice.
Have you ever, the more I hear you talking about it now, the more I'm convinced of this, and that is, even though it's very difficult, especially for a heavy person or a very young person just getting into their life, their teenager years, sensitivities develop. And then I feel like, unfortunately, I think people end up being launched onto decades of a trajectory to figure out to deal with the food sensitivities because, oh, it's so hard to do this or that, or I don't feel like doing this or that. And now, unfortunately, after all these years, I realize, oh, I don't care what their food sensitivity is. And instead of addressing that initially, I have to get them to go out and walk. I have to get them to walk around the block. I don't care how long it takes or what it is. And I have to support them and let them understand that the first reset has to be physical body movement, because without the movement, we may well have contributed to and exacerbated these food sensitivities. And so I find so many people who are now my age and their stories are decades of dealing with the food sensitivities, and yet I see that they're not, I mean, no judgment, but I feel like, they could have unlocked something so much earlier.
Yes. I wish
Than they
somebody,
did. When you did talk about this, getting into physical at 60, if this is right, what a trajectory you had from 40 now to get to 60, and you did the rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon?
well,
Is that
no, it was only rim to rim. I haven't
rim
yet
to
done
rim?
a
Okay,
rim 3.
talk about that at 60. How for your birthday? What a great way to celebrate. Talk about that.
Right? Yeah. So I had started hiking the Grand Canyon back in 2016. And we went to Phantom Ranch, my husband at the time. He and I walked down to Phantom Ranch, and I noticed even before getting to the Grand Canyon that I started having knee pain. I had excruciating knee pain hiking down into the Grand Canyon, and it was hard. Every step hurt. I am just wanted to be there, and so I put up with the pain, but it was really, really hard. It took us 8 hours to hike down to Phantom Ranch. That was a long time because I had a hobble. And I still remember that day. I still remember the path that had a bunch of cobblestones on it next to the river down past Indian Garden. There's a section along a cliff, and it's just gorgeous, and it was cobblestones. Oh my gosh. Every step hurt so bad.
Oh,
And so I started my diet and lifestyle change right after that hike. And I started to improve my knee health. I started to reduce my asthma risk. I started feeling better. I started losing some weight, but not very much. I only lost 20 pounds initially because I had to figure out how to reduce the inflammation. I didn't know all of my food sensitivities yet. And so that was keeping me sick and stuck. And I wanted to say earlier is like, I wish somebody had told me when I was 35 or in my 40s what it is that I needed to do then so I didn't have to lose my 30s and 40s to obesity and being sick and overweight and trying to guess at all of those food sensitivities. If I had known just that one piece,
yeah.
it would have been so amazing because I was sensitive to the wheat and that kept me sick. The dairy kept me inflamed, kept me with mucus. All of that was just, I couldn't heal. It was just going to be ongoing. And so once I started hiking the Grand Canyon, I met somebody along the trail. She was a 70-year-old woman. She inspired me when I didn't even realize it, but I met her at the bottom of the Grand Canyon at dinner, at the steak dinner. And when we left, she didn't leave at the same time we did. We felt, you have to leave at 5:30 in the morning to get up the hill because it's going to take all day and you want to get started. So we left at 5:30. Who knows what time she left, but when she passed us, flew up that hill. Her legs looked like she was a 40-year-old. She did not even hesitate. She was just on a Sunday walk. She walked 10 miles a day. She got her movement, and she hiked the Grand Canyon every year. I had no idea how much that inspired me until recently. And all I knew was that I can keep active and be healthier in my older age if I just kept active. So what I would do, and since I loved the Grand Canyon, I would just go back and I'd hike down to the gardens. I'd get into the canyon and I would see how my body was functioning. I would work on my minerals because my minerals were not great and I'd have some nausea. So I had to fix that. I had to fix my knees. I had to fix my asthma. And I've been down into the Grand Canyon now to the river at least 5 times. I've been down to Indian Gardens a couple extra times, down onto Plateau Point. So what I've been doing is just like exploring how my body works and then watching it heal. And so the Grand Canyon has become a place that has where my soul is how I kind of come home to myself. How I know I am feeling better in my body is because I can get down into that canyon and I can hike. So when I lost 100 pounds, I had planned a trip to get back to the canyon, do rim to rim. The year before, I practiced south rim to south rim. So I went south rim to Phantom Ranch, back up Bright Angel. So South Cape Bob to Bright Angel. And 17 miles, I did good, no pain in my body. I felt amazing. I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the rim to rim. So the very following year was my 60th birthday year, and I did rim to rim. Or actually, yeah, I'd already turned 60 when the year I started planning it. And then I was 61 at the end of that year. So, I can't go in December. My birthday's in December. So I planned it for the end of September or mid-September.
Okay.
So it was like, to me, it was something I just focused on, something I like to do, and my body was capable. I decided to walk rim to rim, and it was an amazing experience. My knees hurt a little bit with that downhill of the north rim, and I did end up taking an ibuprofen. But for the most part, the year before, I had no pain. And I did take me a few months to heal up the pain from my knee, but they're fine now. I've done half marathons since with not a problem. But that year I did have a little bit of sore knees, but it's all cleared up. And the way I keep my knees healthy is a low-carb diet. So if anybody is struggling with knee pain, it's too much sugar in the diet. It's too much inflammation. If you don't want your cartilage to break down, you have to stop feeding your body sugar. And I understand.
Change that diet.
Yeah.
How old were you when you chased up when that 70-year-old passed you on that track?
I was about 52.
52.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, as she passed you, how did you, in your body, you still were, that was before losing, again, 100 pounds, right? So
Right.
when you were going, okay. So in that moment, as she passes you, and she was so pleasant before, as you were climbing up that hill, are you having conversations with yourself at that moment about, okay, I'm I need to do something else. I know what I've been doing. I've been tracking this. So as you're heading up the hill, is there anything extra that you're going to do or anything you're going to change given the inspiration that you later acknowledged from her when you saw her fly up that hill in that moment?
I don't think that I really understood what I was seeing specifically,
Okay.
other than the fact that she looked really young. Her legs looked really young. And I was on the cusp of going from just paleo low carb to keto. And what helped me make that transition was I went to the Bulletproof conference, got more information, started applying bulletproof coffee and more fat to my diet, and understanding that my body type does not do well with even fruit, because I was still eating fruit on a paleo diet and I couldn't tolerate it because I was insulin resistant and pre-diabetic. But on that moment when that lady passed me, what it did was it inspired me. It must have motivated me, and it internally gave me information that I put in my head that I've been gathering from all the books I've read, all the lifestyle changes, everything that's been going on in my body. And it programmed me. It just programmed me to like make it easier to make a change. Like all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, this is information. I could do that. Yes, this is more information. I could do that. Yes, I can get up and I can walk across the Grand Canyon because I can move. I can move without my knees hurting. So all of that was just kind of a programming into my system. And then, that's what we need to do. We need to do those little steps. Like we're 60 and you're feeling tired and you don't want to get out there and get movement. You just got to move. Like you said, you got to get out and go around the block. But what's stopping you? Is it the food sensitivities? Is it your diet? Like, let's discover that. We do not have to sit back and not know what's going on inside our body. There's lab works that we can run to discover those food sensitivities, and working with somebody like me or even you to just get that movement and to get the understanding that if we apply the information I discover for you from your personal lab work, you can correct your health in 6 months or less because you took out the food sensitivities, corrected your digestion, you know what your hidden healing opportunities are now, and now you can actually apply to heal your body, because your body wants to heal. We just got to get it back into homeostasis. What's in the way? I didn't know that when I was 35. I didn't know why I had asthma. I didn't know that the food sensitivities was sabotaging me, and I didn't know how bad sugar was in my diet. Back then, I did the low fat, fat-free diet by Susan Powter, because that's what we were learning. That was what the information was. You could eat Snackwell cookies and you don't have to gain weight, so they said.
Right. I think that's exactly right. But so much of the system is built on, let's evaluate, let's do the test, let's do this thing first, and then go do the thing. My objective these days is like, look, we can do all that. I just spent a ton of money on blood work from myself and a whole bunch of other systems that I'm finally gathering the data together. But I talk to everybody about that. But if you're not out moving, forget it. Go walk around the block a couple of days and then come back.
Yeah.
Don't run the test now, because this is just an avoidance mechanism. And you think that if you pay money to learn data that somehow that's helping you. It's not. It's not if you don't have this other understanding that movement governs everything. Imagine Jabba the Hutt, if you know that character, but imagine just this giant thing sitting on a couch and you can figure out, well, what can I do to, get rid of it? Without movement, the rest of this is just
the movement gives us motivation.
It's just Huckterism, really.
Yeah. The motivation is really important. You have to, if you don't feel good, you can't change your diet. If you're not moving and getting circulation, you're not going to be able to think clearly, and you're going to have more depression. So the movement does go hand in hand with this. And that was something that I did, that helped me stay motivated, and seeing that lady move on at the Grand Canyon, the movement. I walked all the time. I walked always. It didn't help me lose the weight per se until I made lifestyle changes, but it kept me feeling better and kept me uplifted to look for the solutions.
Right. I can't tell you how often I tell runners of all types that, because I'm slow and as I'm following people, especially if I'm on a loop course and it's a race of some sort, people might be passing me, lapping me. And I really look at people's calves. I look at people's legs all the time, because for me, that's the indicator about strength and just and the greatest thing. And I try to tell I try to tell bigger people this because I tell them this every time I get a chance. I've been a larger person with a small frame and a large body and a big beat, whatever their scenario is. There's nothing better than to be behind them. Because as I move next to them and pass them, I say, I don't think people tell you this. Your calves are phenomenal. When those legs are in motion and working, whatever, I don't know you and doesn't matter. And you'll forget about this. Who cares? But those legs are working and it's just inspires me. And Lori, I love to tell people that because most times I could be wrong, but my own confirmation bias says people are judging themselves, their body all the time.
Right,
Body
right.
dysmorphia and body shaming is so very real. And so nothing makes me happier than to run alongside with somebody and say, number one, you're moving faster than I am. Number one, just if that matters to you at all. Number two, those legs are strong. And I don't know if you get people telling you that coming up behind you, but I'm telling you, stay out on the trails because that's what we're out here to do, right? And
Right.
that single piece of cheering someone on ends up being such a good, big motivator that you're right. Once you're in the mindset that movement, I feel better when I move. And if we get people to just feel that and acknowledge that, then it's easier to take on
Yeah, I think
the
that was
next
one
thing.
my biggest motivator was I wanted to be out in nature. I wanted to be out camping and moving and going to national parks. And I had asthma and I couldn't do it as much. I had my mineral levels were off and I would get nauseous. So there were times where I had to actually turn around and not finish some hike or movement because of that. So those are some things that I noticed from the past, but I didn't know it in the moment. I didn't understand why there was nausea. I didn't understand why I didn't feel good. I had to learn it all. And that's why it's
Yeah,
really
me too.
powerful to be able to guide people through this because I focus on minerals, absorption, digestion, gut dysfunction, and just supporting the overall metabolism so it functions better till you get to the point where you can actually lose the weight, keep it off, feel good in your body, and be motivated for more movement. I never
Yeah.
planned to do a half marathon. I only did it because I wanted to go to Zion. And my friend was going to Zion for a half marathon. And I'm like, I could do this. I was starting to be capable. I was at the smallest weight I'd ever been. And
Okay.
my body was ready. My brain was ready. And it was the best race ever. The energy coming off the hills and just jogging to Zion, I would just start dancing. I put the music on and I dance when I jog because I feel so good. The ketones start coming in. You just feel so amazing. You
Was
feel
that the
so
finish line of
uplifted.
the half? Were you
Yeah.
dancing across the finish line? I saw that. I read that
Yeah,
before.
I love
Okay.
it. I love it.
Wow.
And it is just so amazing. So when I was coming across, when I first did the Zion one, I had supplements, I had my nutrition dialed in, I did my practice. I had no pain at the end of that half marathon, no leg cramps, no muscle pain, nothing. I felt great. So I started doing those more often and I just feel really good when I do a half marathon. When I finally got to the Glacier half marathon, that was like my seventh or eighth half
Okay.
marathon.
Okay.
And I'd been learning more about my body. And I had noticed that I would kind of get like bonk towards the 10-mile, 9-mile, 10-mile. And then I would just have to walk the rest of the way in. Well, I finally learned how to fuel myself with the keto bricks, with the ketone IQs for more energy to my muscles. Once I did that, that's at the Glacier half marathon, I discovered that I had more energy at the end and I could run it in. And so I didn't run out of energy. I didn't bonk. I had more energy at the end of that half marathon. And it was initially a 5-mile uphill. And I thought that would be hard. It really wasn't too much hard, but I did the same, like about I do a long, let me see. So 3 hours for a half marathon, just about that mark. I
Mhm.
stop, I walk, jog. I don't run the whole thing. So I'm not
Mhm.
a super runner, but I enjoy doing what I'm doing, dancing, running, participating. And I had the same time on that Glacier route, which was uphill partially, than I did at the Tennessee half marathon where I bonked and I had the same amount of time. So my body's been changing. I'm understanding how to fuel it even more. It's changing every year and building more muscles every year. The more protein I eat, the more I've lost weight recently. I didn't even try. And it's just really cool how my body composition keeps changing. So the hardest thing people have noticed is they can't keep the weight off. I'm
Mm.
now having
I
trouble
want
gaining weight,
what a problem to have. I want to
right?
talk
My
about
pants are all falling off.
I want to talk about the specifics of the fueling, but set it up this way because this is what really got me like, okay, this got to get her over here to talk about this. Is I understand this. So last summer, right, you did this monster Bryce, Pinedale, Glacier, Beartooth, Yellowstone, and the Tetons. Now,
Oh my
were
God.
that by yourself? Like, was it
Well,
self-supported?
I
Is
took my mom.
solo-ish? I think you said. Okay, okay, tell us that story. What
So
kind of
I had
adventure?
my mom lives in Pinedale, Wyoming. And so what I have been doing is scheduling all the half marathons in her area so I could go and visit my mom, stay with her in Pinedale, Wyoming, walk around town, jog around town. There's a river right in the middle of the town. I thought that was the most amazing thing being from California. I'm like, there's a river in the town? That is so cool. So I
That
would
is
go there.
cool.
It'd be kind of like my office, and I'd walk around everywhere. I'd do some jogging,
Wow.
and I would just start to acclimate myself to the elevation because it's about 7,000 feet there. And in the past, I always had an elevation issue. My minerals were off. I didn't feel good. I would get sluggish. My arms would start hurting. I would have elevation sickness. And
Okay.
over the years, I discovered how to manage that. And so now my minerals are better balanced. I know I don't have altitude issues. I just hiked up San Bernardino Peak this past 2 days ago, and it's 10,000 feet. I don't notice any issues because
Wow.
I'm always focused on fueling correctly and making sure I have the right oxygen to my body and my brain. So I don't have that issue anymore. Well, so I would go to my mom's and we would go out and we'd kind of explore. So I said, Mom, I'm going to have a half marathon in Glacier. I'll pick you up and we'll go to Glacier National Park. And so that's what I did. So we ended up, she had mentioned or somebody had talked about, I think it was her or my brother, the Beartooth Highway. So this whole vacation was planned around going to the Beartooth Highway,
Okay.
basically about July 1st. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to go up to Glacier and then we're going to come back down and go into Beartooth Highway and come back around through Yellowstone, which was amazing because it was a different route than I'd ever been before. There were buffalo everywhere. I found a new trail to hike on. And so everywhere I go, I get out of the car and I move. I get out, I hike, I explore. I might jog a little bit. I'll sprint. I just like to feel good in my body. And when I sprint, I feel amazing. And you don't
Mm.
have to spend a lot of energy sprinting if you don't want to, but it's really actually not that complicated. If you overthink it, you're like, oh, I can't do that. But if you just get outside and you got your shoes on or even barefoot, I do it barefoot. You just like, okay, I feel good. And you just start running. And you don't tell your brain you're going to do it and it won't complain to stop you from doing it.
It sounds so freeing. You're making just the way you're talking about, it, Lori, makes me want to. As soon as we stop, I'm going to take my
We
shoes
have to
off and
explore.
run.
You can grow your brain and grow your hippocampus of the brain by getting out and doing road trips and new experiences. So when
What,
you
what,
do
wait,
that, you grow your
what was
brain.
your mom? What was your brain doing with mom? And was she out there walking? She's 87. So
She
number
had
one,
more movement than she usually gets. So
okay,
she had to get out and move more because she had to meet me down. She's had a hip replacement. She
okay.
doesn't get a lot of movement because she does live in Pinedale, Wyoming, and it's always snowy and icy during the winter.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Oh,
she's
okay.
out of practice of getting a lot of movement. But I don't think about those things. I'm like, we're going to Glacier. And then she has to move more. She had to walk to the room. She had to walk from the car. She had to walk down to where, meet me at the half marathon finish. But she did it. And it was good for her. So now she's telling me, "Oh, I'm moving more." She'll tell me now I made her eat more meat. I said I took away her granola and made
Okay.
sure she had the right yogurt when I was with her. But I'm like, Mom, that's too much sugar. And here, eat your meat. So I make sure I feed her, more keto, low carb when I'm with her. And I think she's noticing that I am healthier and that she can also do more similar things. So she mentioned recently, she goes, I'm out walking and I'm moving down the street and around the block where she didn't choose to do that before. And it's a choice. It's a choice. And even if you have a hip replacement or a knee replacement and you're just being sedentary, it's still a choice to get out and have movement. But you'll have to activate your brain by taking the sugar away so you don't feel tired. And that is a
Yeah.
big block for a lot of people. If you feel tired and your brain doesn't want to work, it's not that you can't move, it's that you are not feeling able or capable,
Yeah.
but you can do it. You just have to, like you said, get out and go around the block, get
The
that
brain is so
oxygen.
powerful. Is
Yeah,
this true? Like
we have to get
some
excited.
I kept pulling this mostly from your website, but from
Yeah.
other places. Like, so who knows if it's, yeah, of course it's true. I'm just going to ask you about it. So someone you hadn't seen in 24 years recognized you in Pinedale, and then they said they follow you on YouTube, right? So do you remember that story? And how did that land with you?
Gosh,
After all
I
these years,
somebody said that. I kind of not really remembering that at this point. That's interesting. So a friend of mine said she knew me from high school and she knew when I was overweight. And she's like, where's all that skin? I can't believe how much skin you don't have anymore. She goes, most people who lose weight have all this extra skin. I have very little skin left over. There's still some, but a lot of it your body will eat up because protein is expensive. And if you're doing intermittent fasting, you're going to burn up some of that. You're going to eat up some of that skin. And that's the problem with people who are trying to do low calorie dieting or GLP-1s. They end up with a lot of skin because you're not getting the autophagy while you're doing it. So when you do low carb keto, you actually can burn up, you can actually self-eat your skin, and so it will pull into the body and you can utilize those proteins. So
okay, we're
I had a
almost
friend who
there.
told me
I
that.
know. I feel like you're a racehorse. I'm not on top of you. Hold back, so bad, slow
I
down, Lori. We're getting there. Here's this. This is so beautiful.
Yeah, I get too excited
Aging.
sometimes, but that's
Well,
what I try to get people to understand. If you can get excited about something, you can make the lifestyle changes. The
well,
reason
here's
I'm
where it is.
excited is because I changed my brain.
You gave this to us, right? So let's end here, and then we're going to jump into how you do it. So aging adventurously, like walking me through all that. The 87-year-old up and down Grand Canyon, becoming at your happy, peaceful place now, your place of meditation. I feel like you must have arrived at aging adventurously clearly after you've had so many adventures. I love those two words together. I love
Yeah,
it.
it's what I'm doing. I didn't I didn't plan any of it. I feel good when I'm out in nature. I feel good when I'm on a road trip. I love to plan a 2-week road trip. When I'm out on a road trip, I get outside and run around, like I said, and it just makes me feel good. And so as I started stacking those up, as I started going on road trips, when I go visit my mom, I always stop off at Bryce or at Zion because they're on the way. And so there is no way I'm going to pass a national park and not go for a hike. And so I will spend an extra day doing that. So you had asked me about Bryce, and I camped there a couple of times, and the last time I was there on my way to see my mom for Glacier, I camped across from the rim. I could take a cup of coffee, I could go walk across, and I could just see that. But what I love to do is I like to go up to the very top where you can park, the last place where you can park, and you can walk down into the hoodoos for the whole day. You could just walk down there and feel the quiet, and it just feels amazing. There's so much energy there.
That's the
And then,
Peekaboo Trail. Is
yeah,
that what that
Peekaboo
is?
Trail. Yeah.
Okay. So walking down that now, I didn't think we'd go back here, but you used to be, 225 pounds. Now, recently, in recent years, as you hit that, that's ancient history that at least that body shape size. So how does it feel now? Is there more joy when you go
Oh,
down those
instant,
trails?
instant. It feels so good. I'm like a completely new person with a new body. I'm half the size I
Mm,
used to be. And I have energy. I have more confidence now. And when I remember when I was at Yellowstone, 10,000 feet, back when my son was 10 months old, my youngest son,
okay.
he's going to be 28 this year.
Okay.
There was a trail that went downhill. It terrified me. Terrified me. I'm like, I am not going to hike down that trail because I'd have to come back up. To me, I couldn't do it. I had asthma.
Yeah.
I was 225 pounds. I could not, I was eating jelly beans all the time. I could
Yeah.
not do that hike. And so now what's exciting to me is I can actually go down that trail and come back up. And when the last time I was at Yellowstone, I was hiking all these trails and I could walk down. And I remember that instance where I couldn't come back up. So I wasn't going to go down. But I hiked this other trail. My mom would sit in the car and read, and I felt good. A lot of the times I'll just jog because my mom's waiting for me. So I go fast and I jog the trails because I'm trying to get back to the car because my mom's waiting for me. So That's what I usually do, but I always combine movement with a road trip to stay adventurous, to just get excited, because once you're excited, your brain will let you do more things. You can choose to go camping. You can choose to put up a tent. I have a tent that I put up in the back of the truck. My girlfriends think, you did that by yourself? I'll put up a tent. I planned one trip with my mom over to Rocky Mountain National Park. And I'm like, okay, we've been to Pinedale. I've explored this whole area. Let's go to Rocky Mountain National Park. So she drove down there and met me. And this was about five or 6 years ago. And
Okay.
I had this huge tent that took 12 spikes. I of course, went to Moab. It was on the way. So I had to see canyonlands and arches. And so I did 3 nights in that area and explored everything and did a whole bunch of hiking and had a great time. So by the time I get to the Rocky Mountain National Park, it's the end of the day. And I'm like, okay, I've got to put up this tent. So I just threw it all out of the car, got the hammer, put in all those tents. And I had a tent put up for my mom and I. It was great. But, it's about making it an adventure. If you make it an adventure and plan it, it just falls into place and you could be excited. And when that happens, you continuously lose the weight, you continue to make the lifestyle changes. And if you look at life as an adventure and a lifestyle change, not a diet, a lifestyle change. When you focus on doing that, your brain will work better. Your body starts to come along with you. Movement gets easier. Movement becomes more and more to the point where you can hike across the Grand Canyon because it's easy. Now, I am trying to get my brain wrapped around, will I do an R3? Will I do rim to rim to rim? Do I want to spend 24 hours walking in the dark? I don't know yet if I want to walk in the dark. But I'm trying to decide, and my brain is like, well, I could do rim to rim, spend one night and go back. I would do that. That to me would be fun.
I think because it's your meditative happy place, like you can't.
Can't go
It's
wrong.
not
It's
that
not
there's
that hard.
unfinished. It's not that there's unfinished business. It's just there's so many more opportunities for you to go love the place you love already, right?
Right.
So okay, so here, this is what I think. This I couldn't really wait to hear about this because you already published this. So now this is for the listeners who do run a lot, and they might be older like me, and they run a lot in long distances, but constantly are willing to change up and try new things in a way, right? So if this is where I'd love to your Glacier half, right? That race, that run, your fuel protocol, you published it. And so um this is this is titanium strength, Lori. This is golden. This is a treasure because depending on who we are, they don't know what to look at. At first, I'm looking at all the acronyms. I'm like, oh man, how am I going to learn all this? But what got me in was this. So I want to walk through each piece and just talk to us about it if we could. Okay. So pre-race, water with electrolytes, coffee with collagen, creatine, and perfect aminos. That sounds simple enough. Is that a protocol you did just for this race, or is this something that you
I've been building that. I'd only started doing the perfect aminos over the last 2 years because I
Okay.
don't think I had started that when I did my first rim to rim. So I wasn't as strong at my first rim to rim as I was the year after. And subsequently, because I've been building more muscle, eating more protein, focused more on getting the 30 grams of protein at every meal. So 30 to 45 grams of protein at every meal is what I focus on, and bringing in the perfect aminos to build more muscle. So when I first did back in 3 years ago, I hadn't been doing the perfect aminos as much. I don't think I understood that I needed a free-formed amino acids, but now I understand how critical it is for anybody over 60 to have the free-formed amino acids. It is super critical because we have less protein synthesis happening, especially if you're insulin resistant and in menopause as a woman. You will not have this protein synthesis process happening efficiently. And that's why we start to gain weight. That's why we start to break down our bones and our muscle. There's not enough protein synthesis. So it's basically important to bring in the amino acids. And when
do
you
you ever
add
get
that,
that with I agree. Do you ever get that with protein powders? There's a handful of brands that do say perfect protein contains everything. Some are vegan and some aren't, but still they have all the aminos. Do you ever
as
get
long as
anything
you
from
get
protein
all the
powders?
aminos and you find the brand that you like, it's going to give you that leucine threshold to help build muscle.
Right.
And you want to just make sure you're having all the essential amino acids because it's also neurological support for the brain. but it's going to help the body function better so you can build and keep muscle as we're getting older so that we
Yeah.
don't decline and have osteoporosis. But I also notice that it makes the brain feel better. I've had great testimonies from people who had depression and just using collagen and the perfect aminos with coffee in the morning helps reduce.
Creatine, how many years have you been taking creatine, and how much do you take daily, or what's your creatine regimen, if
Yeah,
there's
so I've
such a
only
thing?
started taking that a couple of years ago too. So that with the perfect aminos and the creatine, I think has really made a difference. I do between 5 and 10, depending on if I'm doing more exercise, I might do 10. If I'm not feeling good in my body, I might go 10. But for the most part, just been focusing on 5. But for a while, I did do 10 grams a day because it does help the brain function. And I am all about having a functioning brain as a practitioner working at 63 that I'm in menopause. I'm not on full BHRT, which is, bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I'm just doing a topical regimen that I put together for myself, and I'm doing a liquid quicksilver liposomal DHEA, which I notice makes my brain feel better. So I also focus on making sure I get my hormones as a woman over 63. And that's been critical. So that using the collagen, the creatine, getting the good fats, so having the hormone support and making sure that my ketones are working helps me fuel my body and get it to run the way I need it to run. When I do my pre-workout fuel, I'm always adding amino acids. I'm adding the collagen, I'm adding the creatine, I'm making sure I get my minerals so that my body can function and not get dehydrated. And it gives me the energy that I need for my muscles to not bonk.
Okay.
And the last time I did the Grand Canyon, last year when I did it, I did the South Cape Op down to Tip Off. The rest of it was closed. And so what we were doing was taking a trail called West Tonto over to Bright Angel Trail because that was the 4-mile junction that we needed to get to Bright Angel to make like a loop. But I didn't just make the loop. I went down to the river for 3 miles, had lunch down there. I ate my keto brick. So what I was fueling with was ultra fat from Vinnie Tortoric, which he's not currently making right now, but that felt essential. So that had electrolytes, almond butter, and MCT oil in it. And then when I had a full 1,000-calorie keto brick, which is made out of cacao butter and some protein powder. And I had that down at the river with my feet in the river, which felt amazing. And then I had more of the ultra fat on the way up, as well as ketone IQ that helped give me the energy to get up the hill. But it was my best time up the hill was 5 hours. I'm sure there's other people that might do it faster, but I spent 5 hours from the river to the top, got up by 4:45, was kind of surprised, but I felt amazing. It felt easy. It was relatively easy for me because I'm confident. My body was fueled. I know the trail, and it just didn't feel hard. And I was trying to help other people who were younger than me get up the hill. Here's some sodium. Oh, do you eat enough protein? Do you get any amino acids? If your body hurts, you got to figure out what your body needs so you can fuel it correctly so it doesn't break
Mm.
down.
Yeah, on race day, as they say, it's hard to kind of add something in the middle of something, but if you're hurting, you're willing to kind of try anything. And it take you back a second so I can really understand this part. The 2 keto bricks, 100 calorie cups at 5:30 a.m., and then 2 more around mile 10. This was the Glacier half.
Mm-hmm.
So go back a second. What is a keto brick? Are they all exactly the same, whatever that means? And then what is it a bar? What's a keto brick?
It's a bar that's created by it's a company. That's the name of the item, and
Oh,
it's Robert Sykes. He's a keto bodybuilder, and he created the keto bricks. And it's funny because I was making those things well before I even heard about a keto brick from him. I used to make my own fat balls, my own little keto bricks, and I even have a recipe in my recipe book that people can download where you can make your own out of using cacao butter, or you could do tallow and then adding some nut butter and then putting in the creatine, the collagen, some electrolytes into it. You can stack it with what you want, and it actually tastes pretty good. And so that's basically what it is. It's just good fat to fuel the body, because when we fuel the body and our body is burning ketones, we have more energy in the muscles rather than just sucking up sugar that might make you feel tired and it burns too fast. Your fat will last longer. It will help you burn body fat and it will give you more ketone energy to feel excited about walking up. And if you get your minerals dialed in and you're getting the right amount of salt, which I always do, then your body will just work the way you need it to, and it feels easy.
Okay. How big is a keto brick? Like this size? Like I have no idea. How big is the bar? Like
Um,
this?
yeah, it's about this fat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I didn't bring one with
And
me.
you
I
just
have it
carry
out in
it
the
just
room.
like a gel or
Do you want me to go
any kind
grab
of
one
bar.
real quick?
Uh,
Do you mind if
uh,
I go grab one?
full service guest on the Run Long After 60 podcast. Lori Balue steps out to get the bar. Okay.
And
So
I'm
it's a
not
real
an
thing.
affiliate with them. It's just
Okay.
something that I use to fuel, and I
Okay.
can make my own, but this is just easier. When I went on the San Bernardino Peak hike as well as the Cucamonga Peak hike recently, what I do with this is I cut it into smaller pieces. Although it melted the last time, and I didn't really need to cut it. Cacao butter melts less quickly than tallow, but I like
Okay.
the tallow one because it's softer. And I just put it in my little running pack in the front pouch, and I just will eat this incrementally on my hike up. So I fuel on my way up with when I'm doing uphill hikes. But at the Grand Canyon, I don't need to fuel as much until midday because I'm hiking down and then hiking up later. So I like to have my fuel like at lunch so that I have the energy to get up the hill. But when I'm doing the peaks, I do this before. I do it before and during. And I'm always making
Okay.
sure I have amino acids before I start, and I take the amino acids after to make sure I get the muscle synthesis process happening.
Okay. So then you also then after that you added ketone IQ. Talk about it, and do you describe yourself as a fat adapted athlete?
Yes.
Like okay. So you ketone IQ is important to you, and talk to me about that.
So what that does is it gives me more energy. And when I was hiking up the Grand Canyon the last time, I had 3 of them. I had it at I know I had one at Indian Gardens. I had it again at 3 Mile, and I had it at 1.5 Mile. And so it gave me more energy to my muscles, along with the fat that's training my body to fat fuel because I am fat adapted. And I flew up that hill. I didn't have any problem at all. I always will stop here and there just to catch my breath. I'm not an ultra runner. I'm not going to run the Grand Canyon, but I didn't have any pain and I was able to go up the hill pretty readily. So I felt
Perfect.
like it just worked really well. So I was really surprised that how well that worked.
Okay. I get that. I haven't I take ketone IQ and I've seen some runners a lot of ultra runners say when they're doing super long distance races like they take a handful of them every 10 miles or something. And I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to give it a go cuz I like the way it feels and I do take them, but I'm anyway, I just got to give that a
Well, I
try.
had heard at one point, I'm like, okay, what causes my muscles to bonk? Like, why are my muscles stopping and I can't run anymore?
Yeah.
And so I decided to try. I seem to understand that there needed to be more fuel in the muscle with fat, but there is like a shortcut. Having the ketone IQ seems to also give the muscles more energy. And so my legs didn't get as tired, and I was able to continue moving quicker, and I didn't. And at the Glacier Half Marathon, I ran across the finish line where I normally didn't have that much energy. So it felt really good.
Man, that if that's what happened, and I'm not gonna if that's my protocol, I'm not gonna stop that. I'm not gonna change that protocol if that's how
Yeah.
you finish that race. I love it. You did talk about water for a second. So, do you need? Have you ever done a sweat test? And how much water do you need every hour if that's how you measure it or whatever?
So I have not done a sweat test. I'm not an extreme sweater, but when I did a Grand Canyon hike to the river and back to Phantom Ranch and back early
Okay.
September during a heat wave, and it was
Okay.
110 down at the bottom. I remember calculating how much salt I had that day because I was using LMNT and some other packets. I sucked down a good 10 grams of sodium that day, if not more. And so when you're out in the heat, what I do is I just make sure that I'm hydrating only with salt water. I don't drink plain water. I add salt to everything. And I add the salt and potassium from LMNT to everything. I even add it to the coffee. So if I like coffee. When I go down to Phantom Ranch, I don't drink the lemonade. I ask for cold coffee. And when I make an electrolyte or have more coffee, if I decide to have more coffee at Indian Gardens, which I usually do, I put an electrolyte packet into it. I'll do that today. I'll add the chocolate or the caramel LMNT to my coffee that's cold, or if it's hot. And I actually like it. And it's kind of like part of having bulletproof coffee. I don't add the fat to bulletproof coffee anymore because I don't need that much fat anymore because my
Yeah.
body has learned to be fat adaptive. And so now I just add the electrolytes to it. And then I might add the collagen and creatine. Usually that's what I'll add to it now. I don't need the fat anymore. But if I want more energy, I do like to utilize MCT oil to help with more energy, which is how the keto bricks and the ultra fat has helped me, is getting that
Okay.
extra MCT oil for more energy.
Before I was paleo for a couple of years, and I loved it. I never felt so good physically, and had big stores of MCT oil for a long time, and then I just got bored and wanted to change things up, so I changed to a vegan diet starting January 1, 2025. For so the entire year I was vegan, strict vegan, and I felt great. I mean, I love my meat, but I just felt great. But I had eliminated all animal protein, so I had to, make up for it and really kind of make up for it. And so I changed my diets radically over time, but the objective was always to feel great and to be able to perform appropriately, right?
Mhm.
So one thing that I learned in 2020, probably 2024, the end of 2024, I took a sweat test. And so I really understand how much sodium I do need. And so I was able to dial my electrolytes in like never before. So if you and I were having coffee, we'd be having the same coffee. Like I'm always monitoring how much my sodium, what I'm drinking. So on my
Yeah,
rest days, even on
got it
rest
in
days,
here.
I don't, yeah, on rest days, I know how much I have to add or don't add. And yeah, when I'm out there running, it's all my soft flasks have electrolytes in them, like
Yeah.
everything. So it's all dialed, trying to measure exactly how much liquid I need and how much I need to replace while we're running.
Yeah,
Running.
usually when I'm out on Grand Canyon hikes, I always make sure I have extra salt, and I'll pass it out to people on the trail that look really exhausted. And so if they're smart, they usually take it and they're like, "Oh my god, that was so fast. I felt so good." I mean, I see people on the side of a trail feeling nauseous. I give them the salt, and next thing you know, they're passing me up again, because it works so fast.
It. I'm shocked. I was shocked that it's not like people were keeping this information from me, but I was not a young man when I learned the power of a salt capsule, right? The power of getting that back into your system because, like you
Electricity.
said, it's immediate. Yeah, it's almost immediate. Let's talk about this. I do have a lot of 100 to 200-mile runners or more than 200 miles. And like me, they've probably through the years gone through a lot of different diets, maybe not because of their ethical concerns, mostly because of they're trying to fuel themselves for what's good for them.
Right.
And ultimately, Lori, it could be because years and years ago, they believed that they had a food sensitivity, and it's. I think sometimes a lot of people I talk to, like they made these decisions from years ago. Their understanding of what a food sensitivity was, and they never revisited that. They've just
Right.
designed. They've created. They've become the architect of their own fueling system, which is good for them. But sometimes I listen to it, I'm thinking, oh man, what if it, that's not? It's true. It was true then, and you've architected around it, but let's talk about fat adaptation and fat adaptive efforts after. And I know you're not a 100-mile runner or 200-mile runner, but what's your sense about what happens after for 100-mile runners or 200-mile runners? Is there uh, there's there a moment when fat adaptation is where does it fall apart? What distance or how long do we have to go before fat adaptive ability to, energize and burn fuel with the fats, when does that disappear? Or when does that change? Or is there such a thing as a bridge from like, okay, that's too far?
Well, I think athletes are naturally more metabolically flexible because you do have to run long distances. And there have been a lot of studies. There's a lot of studies coming out from Dr. Tim Noakes. And he used to write the book on running and using all the carbohydrates for fuel. And he has since become diabetic, changed his mind, tore his book apart, and has reversed his diabetes on a low carb keto diet. And so he's now doing more studies based on that. And he has shown that with fat, you can get just as much fuel as if you're doing the sugar, and that you can actually go a little further on the fat than you can the carbs. But they've been talking about, and everything I've heard states that most people who are using carbohydrates are still burning their fat in between the carbohydrates. So it's not 100% fat adapted, but people are still burning their fat. So I'm not sure I completely answered your question or not about
No,
that.
that's okay. That's okay. Tim Noakes, the first guy that put out many decades ago now, because he's been writing
Mhm.
about all kinds of things.
Yeah,
The
his story is fascinating.
right, and now of course I'm blanking on it right now, but there was there's the internal engine or the brain. What was his first concept was that we trust our somehow we just trust we have an idea what but the body's system is going to do what the body does. I wish I could remember the name of it. I'll put it in the maybe I'll find in post, put it up there. But that every time we have new study about a thing and we really dive into it, then ultimately other people study it like, well, we got to adjust that. That's not exactly how things work. And then we do go another extreme doing this way and that way. And so I'm glad that he's still writing. It's kind of amazing that
You
he's
know, and
still
a
in the
lot of it
mix.
is it's a lot of it is how does your body work? How does your body personally adapt to the food that you're eating? Like you mentioned, some people will change their diet based on food sensitivities, but it's also on digestion. If people are having trouble eating and digesting protein, they might cut it back, eat less heavy meats because they're not digesting it and they don't feel good. But it's the same thing with carbohydrates. A lot of people will get gas and bloating from eating wheat and don't feel good from eating some of the carbohydrates, and then they might feel better on fat and protein. So there's different ways of how the body can feel, which is what people can tolerate. And food sensitivities does have a lot to do with that
It
and the
does. And so
digestive issue.
central governor, that's the
Mhm.
word I was looking for. So when he first published that so many years ago, and I really embrace. It's easy to embrace the concept. Like, well, listen, each one of us is different, but we can really trust what our just trust what our body's telling us. And I think that's so true. But because our brain is so powerful, we can convince ourselves just about anything, right? So
Yes, for
it's
sure.
true, is true. And then Alex Hutchinson, I believe, yeah, in his book, work called Endure, he's the idea that after all these long distances, and he tracked marathoners, but ultras as well, we're pushing as hard as we possibly can. And then, the last quarter of a mile, or if you're doing the Western States endurance run, it's 100 miles, and the last couple hundred yards, like people are sprinting. And so we think we're operating at maximum level, and
That's
then
the
we
fat burning that
discover we're
comes in,
not.
I think. Yeah. The fat burning comes in when you push that extra mileage. But I also liked, I've studied Mark Kuzakella. I can't know if I say his name right. He's an athlete, a runner, and he's also low carb.
Kukuzela.
There you go. That name is hard to say, but he is an endurance runner, a physician, and a low carb physician. But he's a runner too. So I love studying and listening to him. And, I've absorbed a lot of information over the last 25 plus years. I've read all the books. I've listened to the podcast. I've followed Dave Asprey. I've followed Mark. I've followed Mark Hyman, everybody.
Right.
I have taken all of that information and
Great
based on
names.
my
I agree. I
own,
agree.
right,
Yeah.
based on my own results, my successes, and everything I've learned from all these other people who are doing it and helping other people, there's a lot. That's how I created Aging Adventurously because my process works. I'm not gaining the weight back. This is permanent weight loss. I'm metabolically fit and active at 63. My brain functions. And when we take out the food sensitivities and reduce the inflammation, that's when the body functions right. That's why I like running diagnostic labs. I could find your food sensitivities. I could find what's causing inflammation in your body. I could see what your gut, we can have a window to your gut to see what the dysfunction is and to kind of correct it. the best that we can. And using my knowledge and my clinical experience, this is how I put people back together again. It's kind of like Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. We just got to fill in the cracks and put you back up on the wall and get you active again. And like, what is causing your ligaments to break down? A lot of people think it's just wear and tear. What if it's just, yeah, it's wear and tear from the sugar degenerating your joints? That breaks the cartilage down. Got to stop the breakdown of the cartilage by bringing in more fat and fuel. That is protein and reducing too much sugar. So, does your body do okay? You're doing okay on a vegan diet. No, I couldn't. That was not I took a metabolic typing diet. I'm a protein-based body type and I do well with it. Yesterday I had fish only and I'm like, I'm starving. What is wrong with me? I'm like, I'm still hungry. I hiked the San Bernardino Peak the other day. I'm hungrier yesterday than I was. And today I ate 2 hamburger patties already because like I needed some meat. And that's
Yeah,
how my body functions.
I feel, I'm excited at 62 to be able to continue to experiment and do all kinds of things. But honestly, I lose people. I rarely get to talk, or rather, people ask questions once or twice and then they stop asking because they want to know, well, how does my system work? How am I
Mhm.
recovering? What am I eating? What am I not eating? And I consume so much fuel, so much. And recently I went off of, after 13, 14, 15 months, 16 months, I needed more animal proteins more quickly. I need more protein more quickly. I have a lot of protein guided up. I mean, I eat a lot of protein every day. And so I brought back in hard boiled eggs in the morning, 2 hard boiled eggs, and a can of sardines every day. And
Perfect.
I'm a big, big fan of that. I have a super sandwich I used to eat when I was younger, and now I brought it back. I'm very excited about that. But people don't really want to hear that I fluctuate 6 pounds almost daily, depending on how I'm running and what I'm doing. And people are like, that's not right. That's not healthy. And because their narrative is, I need to lose 7 pounds. I have to
Mhm.
lose this 7 pounds. We get people caught up on a track on what they think they're supposed to do or be or feel.
Right.
And it's always ends up being about weight. And I feel bad. And I rarely can talk to some of my runner friends who are women openly talk about it. And the moment I get people to be able to feel the joy, and this is how I experience it anyway. The moment people get to feel the joy of putting on weight and it comes off because it's just part of the cycle of the activity. I have to fuel my body, do the task I'm telling it to do, and recover properly. And after those couple of days, you get to see the cycles of, oh, and it could be me, and the how much it goes ups or downs is me. But it blows people's minds because we programmed ourselves to not think that way, to not
Right.
think it's okay. Of course,
You know,
it's functioning.
I listened to a protein podcast not too long ago, and they were talking about people who are, I think they're boxers, and they have to weigh in before they go into the week before. So what
Sure.
they do is they dehydrate themselves and they lose like 10 to 20 pounds of glycogen, water, so they could get their weight under. And so then once they weigh in that very day, they start hydrating, they start making sure they get more glycogen. They put on the extra weight in 24 hours before they go into the arena, which is kind of ridiculous. Like everybody has to do this every single time. But the thing is like it's not just glycogen and water half the time. If you gain that weight, and it's also the food volume. If you're more vegetarian, I know of a vegetarian bodybuilder from Bioptimizers, one of the um, owners of Bioptimizers. One is keto and the other one is a vegetarian, vegan. The vegan vegetarian mentioned he could gain 6 to 10 pounds a day, depending on the volume of the food he's eating. And it's also about the hydration. I got sick a while back. I don't really get sick much because I have a lot of ketones in my body. It keeps me protected. But I sliced my thumb open and had to go to emergency. So I ended
Oh,
up in emergency to get stitches from my thumb. And I had a mask on. I don't know if it was just trauma, but the whole next week I was like not eating very much. I didn't feel good. My energy was off. I was slightly nauseous, and I just kind of take the week to just reset. I basically did a protein sparing modified fast without even realizing, and I dropped 9 pounds in 1 week. And it just kind of reset my metabolism too, because I'm also down at my lowest weight that I've been in a long time. I'm back,
Mm.
I'm back down to like 126, and I'm just hovering there, even with the water weight back. It's just like, it's interesting to see that I'm like, wow, that must have just all been water weight and glycogen. 9 pounds.
Yeah, and if you're a runner, you need those glycogen stores. I mean,
Right.
yes,
Right.
that's
You want
exactly
to
right.
make sure you're replenished.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and so when I do this is interesting for me. If it's an under if I go out on an under 20-mile effort, I still fuel the way I would fuel all the time. So I'm taking my electrolytes, and there's carbs in it too. So technically, I take about 850 grams of sodium or electrolytes every hour. I have to replenish about a liter of fluid, but
I,
850
I think
milligrams of
that's about
sodium.
right. Yeah, that's good.
And then I take 80, 20, 40, yeah, I take 85 grams of carbs an hour when I'm out on any effort after this starting the second hour because I preload things. And ideally, if it's hot, I'm sweating, whatever it is, if I'm putting out the right amount of energy to capture the pace that I need to capture to not run so slow that they kick me off the course, immediately after the race, I should weigh about the same because I've sweat out what I put in. It should be about the same. But then 12 hours later, after taking recovery drinks too, and that's sleeping, right? Then there'll be a couple of extra pounds that are gone, but only because my body was working hard to recover. I
Right.
had everything I needed during the race, and I had everything I needed in the recovery, and I wake up and it's a couple pounds lighter. If it's a lot of pounds lighter, then often it means, oh, it was much longer than a 20-mile effort. You weren't as balanced as you thought you were. You might not have had enough sleep the last 2 days prior to the race. So I'm pretty dialed in just for me. Just for me, I've thought carbs was what was governing everything. So before I was vegan, I did a lot of liquid carbs, a lot of liquid carbs, but my sodium wasn't dialed in. Once I took that sweat test and changed it, so now electrolytes are the most important thing that I that I watch, and then I almost like on a drip, I take the carbs. I know exactly how much I'm coming in. There's no big smashing. I don't eat anything at the aid stations. I'm in and out. I carry all my fuel with me, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like, oh wow, maybe after all these years, Lori, I figured out the electrolyte intake.
Yeah, the electrolyte is really important. Like that Glacier half marathon that I did, it was the first half marathon I didn't stop at the water stations. I carried all of my electrolytes in my front pouch, and I just made sure that I was saturated with sodium, and I didn't need to fuel any extra water along that race. So I thought that was interesting too. I did not want to drink any plain water.
What's your next big hiking adventure? What's the next thing for you with respect to going out there and doing some crazy adventuring as we age?
So I'm going to do Mount Jacinto this coming weekend, and I'm a little bit nervous, but it's the second highest peak in Southern California. But I'm kind of cheating in some ways because I'm starting at 5,000 feet and going up, at least 5,000 feet. So we're
What do you mean
starting at
cheating? Wait, I don't understand. What are you talking
because
about?
I'm not doing cactus to cloud, which is the one that you start in Palm Springs to go up Mount Jacinto. We're starting in Idlewild, where you're already at a higher elevation, and then you're hiking up to the peak from there. So I think it's about 20 miles still, but so 10 miles there and 10 miles back with about a 5,000 foot elevation to 12,000 feet, I believe it is. So I haven't read the report recently, but I'm like, I haven't done this yet. So, I mean, I'm assuming I could do it, but
Serious.
it'll be hard.
What's your
It'll be
fueling?
fun.
What do you take with you? What do you take with you to get up there and come back down?
My keto brick and the ketone, one ketone IQ and the LMNT.
One keto brick. Like how long will it take? How long do you pack? Would you pack two of them or three of them?
I
What do you
only
pack?
pack one because I don't need to. I've got some beef sticks for when I get to the top for lunch because I want to have more protein. So I'll use beef sticks up at the top, but the keto brick is the 1,000-calorie fat fuel to get me up the hill. And I use that with one ketone IQ. I could do two ketone IQs, I guess, since it's a little bit more elevation gain. Um, So I might do 2 of those. But I make sure I have the perfect aminos, electrolyte, that I have the creatine, that I'm hydrated, that I got the LMNT in my coffee, and then I will pack 3 to 4 extra electrolyte bottles with LMNT and some beet powder, some citrulline, and I have another supplement that I'm using that has oxidative support as well as more circulatory support to get more oxygen to my brain. I'm also using spirulina, some greens to help encourage more oxygen. I have a neuropregnenolone product from Quicksilver that I just love, and it just came in, and it has bacopa and ginkgo in it to help oxygenate the brain as well and give me more energy that way. So I'm exploring as a practitioner, those are some I've always been like this. I'm like, what can I use that's gonna help my brain function better?
Yeah, yeah,
What's
yeah.
gonna give me more oxygen? What's gonna help me? I mean, I think I made a list of all the things that I kind of want to put into my body for Mount Whitney because Mount Whitney's coming up. I'm training for Mount Whitney. And so I'm like, okay, well, how much oxygen do I need? How do I keep my body fueled? Will I be able to do Mount Whitney with people say you get sick, you get nausea, it's hard. Some people have to turn around. I don't know yet if I could do 1,400 feet, but I'm going to attempt it and I'm going to, do the best I can, but I'm going to have a keto brick with me and I'm going to have as much. Oh, and I started rhodiola. Make sure I have that. I get my mushrooms. So I got my ginkgo, but I got my bacopa. I can bring in some parsley, some chlorella, spirulina, all these things, lion's mane, reishi. I just want my brain to be less inflammatory. So, like people say, take an ibuprofen. Well, what do I need to do to keep my brain from being inflamed on a high altitude hike? That's
Amen.
what I
And
like to
so
focus on.
thank you for that, Lori. This has been a joy. And I want every listener and viewer, because it's on YouTube as well, to understand, like, how many times as you're listening did you say, Mark, let her talk. Mark, let her talk. Mark, let her. Here's the thing. Check it out. Go to Lori Balue, LoriBalue.com. You can follow her. Is this right, Lori? Lori Baloo Weight Loss. That's on our
Mhm.
Instagram
On
channel.
Instagram,
And
and
then
YouTube.
she's got free workbooks and recipe books and uh y-
I
y-
actually have a new guide too, especially for women, but it's for people over 50. It is a guide, a metabolic restoration guide for women over 50, but it helps for men as well. It's just my focus has been a woman over 50 making the healing and making all the changes in menopause. But it is my essential steps that I've taken to actually get to the point where I'm at now and what you can do. So that one I'd have to send, you'd have to send me your email and I'd have to send you the PDF because it's a little too big to hook in. I don't have it set up yet as a freebie, but it is available if you're interested.
so please go see more. Check out her website. I really wanted to focus on Lori's, athletic endeavors, and she did that. She graciously let me keep guiding back to those hikes and the rim to rim, and the fact that you said that it's your happy place, your meditative place, as the Grand Canyon. That's beautiful because as we get older, people have to start moving, and I know when we're younger we need to move too.
You have to find the motivation. You got to get excited about it. That's why I like to look at this as an adventure. We need to get excited. We need to make sure the brain doesn't shrink. We need to make sure that we grow our brain, and we need to add fuel to the brain. Whatever diet works for your body. Discover your food sensitivities. Stop the inflammation. Just make sure your body's functioning without medications, and so that you don't break your cartilages down and have to replace your hip.
And drop the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, Lori Baloo. That was fantastic. Lori, thank you so much. I
You're
can't wait to
welcome,
keep
Mark. Thanks for
following
the
you along the
conversation.
trail. It was a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
fun. It was a lot
Just
of fun.
keep
Okay.
active.
Stay active, everybody. Check out her website, and we'll see you all the next time. Thank you, Lori.